With the release of PopOS 1910 recently, I decided it was time to record a video showing you guys how to dual boot it with Windows, because I do get this question that comes up every now and then: how do I do that? And I have other videos on my channel that show you the process, for example, of dual booting with Ubuntu or Linux Mint and Windows, but I didn't have a video specific to PopOS, at least as far as I remember. I don't think I did one. But anyway, either way, this is an updated video, but in this video I show you the process specific to PopOS, which is not the same as it is with Ubuntu and Linux Mint. So if you've already seen those videos, well, you know, it's going to be a little bit more manual, but it's not hard. Just follow along with me and you'll be just fine. And then you'll have your dual boot set up before you know it. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at the process of dual booting Windows and PopOS. So here on my laptop, you are seeing something that you don't normally see on my channel, because, you know, I'm primarily a Linux channel, but, you know, here's a Windows installation. So this is a fresh installation of Windows 10. Off camera, I went ahead and went through the installation process. I wiped out the hard drive, and currently Windows 10 is the only operating system that I have on this computer. This is a System76 Lemur laptop, in case you were wondering. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to take a machine that has Windows as its only operating system, and we are going to transform it into a dual boot between Windows and Linux. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just make sure that you are completely up to date in Windows. So if you go here to Settings, and then go to Check for Updates, it tells me that I am up to date because I just went ahead and made sure that I was up to date before I hit the record button. So as of the time I'm recording this video, this is a current Windows installation. So the next thing you're going to want to do is back up all of your important files. Now, I've gone through this process again and again and again, and it always works for me. But, you know, I can't test this on every single laptop and desktop out there. So just in case something goes wrong, it's a good idea to have a backup to restore from. So go ahead and take care of that if you haven't already done so, just in case. Hopefully, you're not going to need that backup. And then once you have gone ahead and backed up all your files, we need to download Linux. So I'm going to open up a browser. This is a fresh install, so Edge is currently the only browser that I have. I'm going to go ahead and open up Google. Fastest way to get to something, I'm going to search for PopOS. I know it's spelled differently than that, but it works. So what you're going to do is go to this URL right here, System76/pop, as you can see here on my screen. Scroll down a bit, and you're going to see a download button. Right now it says download 1910, but if you're watching this in the future, if so, greetings to you, future person, then you might see a different version number here. The LTS release is long-term supported release, which the next version is going to be LTS. So that'll be 2004, due in April of 2020. But for most of you, I recommend you download 1910 or whatever the current version is. That should be fine. And then when you click on it, you'll have a couple of options here, Intel or NVIDIA. So to most of you, it should be probably pretty obvious which one you should go with. You need to know what kind of GPU or graphics processing unit you have in your computer, and then you just choose accordingly. If you have an NVIDIA video card, choose the NVIDIA version. If you don't, so for example, you have AMD or Intel, then go with that version. And the reason why there's two versions is because System76, the makers of PopOS, they actually customized it based on the GPU to make sure that you get the best performance for the video card that you have in your computer. If you're not sure, you can simply go to the Start menu down here, right-click on that, go to Device Manager, and you should see something that says Display Adapters. And if you expand that, you'll see a list of your video cards. You might have more than one. Maybe you'll have Intel and NVIDIA. But the rule of thumb is if NVIDIA is shown here at all, go with the NVIDIA version. If it isn't, then you go with the Intel/AMD version, because Intel and AMD both share the same download for the same version of PopOS. So now that we know which GPU we have in this machine, we know that we, at least in my case, need the Intel version. Again, if you saw NVIDIA there in the device manager, choose that. The process of installation does not change between the two. So I'll click on this, and it's going to have me download an ISO file. Now, I've already gone through the process of downloading this, so I'm not going to bore you to force you to watch the download progress meter complete. I've already created a bootable flash drive right here that already contains the PopOS installation media on it, and I'm going to be using this to boot into the computer. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in, and we should be good to go. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, I downloaded this ISO file. How do I make a bootable flash drive with it? What you're going to do is download Etcher. If you type in etcher.io and press enter, you will be redirected to this website right here. You can download this utility, which will allow you to do that. It works for Windows, Mac OS, and it also works for other Linux distributions as well. Basically, whatever you're running, it's available, and you'll use this to create your bootable flash drive. Now, I already have a video on my channel that walks you through how to use Etcher. I'll put a card right here. So I'm not going to go through that process here. Go ahead and check out that video if you're curious. But essentially, all it is exactly what you see here. You select your image. That'll be the ISO file you download. You select your flash drive, and you click Flash. And of course, it's going to wipe out that flash drive and everything on it. So hopefully you don't have anything important there. And then when you have that created, you are good to go. So before we continue, just a quick recap. I'm assuming a few things here. I'm assuming that Windows is the only operating system on your computer. I'm assuming that you've already backed up your files in case things have gone wrong. I'm also assuming that you've created your bootable Linux installation media by Etcher or another tool if you prefer, and you have that ready as well. Now, I already plugged in my flash drive, so I am ready to go. I'm just going to go ahead and verify that it's detected, and it is. It says safely removed, so I know my computer sees it. And then I'm going to go ahead and restart, so I'll do that now. Let's go. I'm going to get ready to press the button that corresponds to accessing the boot menu when I start my computer. In my case, it's F7. I'm just going to keep pressing it over and over again like a maniac until the boot menu shows up. And here it is. Obviously, with your computer, it could be something else, like Dell, for example, is commonly F12, but I'll leave it up to you to look at the documentation so that you know what button it is you should press as you start your computer. And again, you just want to make sure the flash drive is plugged in before you do that. And you should see your flash drive on the list. Mine is this one. It's a strange name, but it is that one. So you should see something in your boot list that corresponds to your flash drive. So I'm going to go ahead and press enter. At this point, it is booting, so ignore the ugly white text. That won't be a problem. That just shows you, a lot of verbosity as far as what it's actually doing, but nothing that you see here pertains to our task at hand. And here we are. We are successfully running PopOS. Now at this point, it's not actually installed. If you didn't already know, most Linux distributions, PopOS included, actually boot into what is known as live mode, which allows you to try out the distribution before you install it. Now it's going to run slower off the flash drive until you actually do install it. So the speed and responsiveness of PopOS at this point is not the same as it will be once you do get it installed, but it lets you try it out before you install so you can make sure that everything works. So specifically, what you're going to want to do is click up here, the top right corner, where it says Wi-Fi not connected. I'm going to click on that and select my network. This is my Wi-Fi network right here. And then I'm going to type in the password. And we can see that the Wi-Fi icon lit up, so we are good to go. So at least now we know that internet works. So now we have this window staring us right in the face. It's basically asking us to select our language. It defaults to English in my case. So if yours is different than that, you can just select whatever that is. You can use your mouse wheel to scroll through the list if you need to. I'll leave mine at the default. I'll select the default here as well. And again here. and again here. But basically, if your language or keyboard layouts are different, then, of course, as I mentioned, just select accordingly. So we have some options here. We can try demo mode, which is essentially what we're already doing, which basically means we're just going to use this as live media, and we're not going to install it right now. Now, it is probably a good idea to just go up here to Activities, click on the Firefox browser, for example, and just make sure your internet is truly working. So for example, you can go to my website, and okay, now we know for sure internet is working, and then you can click on any one of my videos here to ensure that you are able to watch YouTube videos. So at that point, your sound is working, you're able to watch videos, you can access websites, so things generally look okay. Now, if for any reason any of this fails, you can't access the internet, audio doesn't work, then you shouldn't install it. Just go on Google with the model number of your device, search for audio issues, internet issues, whatever kinds of issues you're running into, look for a solution before you install. But assuming that everything works out well, we can proceed with the installation. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Custom Advanced. Then I'm going to go again, Custom Advanced. And right now we are seeing our current disk layout. In my case, I have a 500 gigabyte Samsung SSD, but everything is used. We actually don't have any room for our Linux installation because, right here you can see NTFS is taking up the majority of the drive. So what do we do? Well, what we want to do is modify partitions. So I'll click on that. And here at the end, we have NTFS partition. This is the main partition for the Windows install. And again, it's using the majority, so we know that that's the one that we want to target. Now again, I'm sure you've backed up all of your files in case, for whatever reason, this process fails. But what I'm going to do is walk you through the process of resizing this. So you'll make sure that whatever your Windows installation partition is the one that's selected. Again, look for the biggest one, gigabytes. This is gigabytes, but we're just going to say gigabytes. That's selected. So I'll go to Partition, and then I'll go to Resize. Now, what we can do is kind of move our mouse over here to the edge, and it kind of turns into a double arrow icon, and then we can hold down the left mouse button and drag that accordingly. Now, if you make a mistake, say, oops, I slid this over, don't click Resize. Hit Cancel. If for any reason you make a mistake, I'm going to go back here. If for any reason you make a mistake or things don't quite look right, cancel. Try it again. We want to make sure we get that double arrow icon and we drag it over with however much space we want to give each. So here we have, let's just say 195 gigabytes or somewhere around there. That's going to be free after this operation. This side here on the left should not move. If you do move that side or move that around, there's a possibility you might not be able to boot or some weird stuff might happen. Don't do that. But you'd only need to basically move this edge right here to give us some free space at the end for our new installation. So I'll click Resize. And right now we just look at the confirmation here. We're going to shrink that volume from 465 gigabytes to 274 gigabytes or whatever you chose for yours. And again, you've backed up all your files, so it's fine. We're going to go ahead and apply it. And it says that it successfully completed that, so I'll close. Should be good to go, so I'll go ahead and close this window. So at this point, we need to do some manual partitioning. So we're going to go back to Modify Partitions again. And we're going to create a new partition. So we can right-click where it says Unallocated. We'll click on New. And we need to actually create a partition for the boot volume for PopOS. So what we're going to do is change the size to 512. And we're going to change the file system to FAT32 right here. I'm going to click Add. Next, we want to create another partition. So I'll right-click on that and click New. So we want about 4 gigabytes 4096. I know that's not exact. It's measuring in megabytes, but we're not going to go there. Long description, but this is close enough. This is for swap. You generally want this to be around the same size or about half of whatever you have in RAM, because this impacts your ability to suspend a RAM. Generally, you can add 1 gig. So if you have 4 gigs of RAM, you can basically make this a 5 here at the beginning. But I'll leave it up to you to adjust if you even want this. Some people don't even like swap, so they'll just omit this completely. Don't recommend that. You can go as low as 2048 or around 2 gigabytes, but I think 4 gigabytes is probably the least I would go with. And if you have a ginormous amount of RAM, you're going to want to adjust that accordingly. And if you do use suspend a lot, it's not out of the realm of norm to choose these whatever size of RAM you have plus 1 gig, but I'll leave that up to you. Just go with a minimum of 4 gigs or 4096 in this case. And the file system is going to be swap right here, Linux swap. We're going to click add. But we still have a bunch of space available. So here's where we create the partition where PopOS itself is going to live. So we'll create a new partition. We're going to allow it to use all the remaining space. We're not going to customize the size here. File system ext4, that's fine. We're just going to click add. And now our hard drive is completely used up. So we're going to apply our operations again and click on that. And it's creating our partitions. Everything was successful, so I'll go ahead and close. And then close this again. So now we're going to click on the first partition we created. So I'll click Use Partition. Format, yes, just to be on the safe side. Use as boot, that's correct. That's what we're going to do. Next, I'm going to click on the second one. Use partition, it's going to be used as swap. It automatically detected that, which is pretty useful, but if not, go ahead and set that accordingly. And I just click off of it to finalize it. Now the last one, we're going to use it. We're going to format it and make sure it says root partition right here. That's what we want. And we're going to leave it as the default of ext4. So now we have a check mark on all 3 of those partitions. So I'll click install and away we go. I'm going to go ahead and let this go. I'm going to fast forward through this part and I will be right back when it's done. So there we go. The installation process has completed. But was it successful? I'm going to go ahead and restart, and we're about to find out. I'll click Restart Device. And we'll see if it worked. So when I restarted the computer, it took me right into PopOS. I had a first run wizard come up. And I went through that, filled out the information. I wasn't able to record it because the screen recorder wasn't active and isn't able to be activated until after that screen. So now we know PopOS is working. So I'm going to reboot one more time. And then when I do, I'm going to press the same startup key combination that I pressed previously to access the boot menu to boot to the flash drive. I'm going to see if I have an option for Windows. So here we are. We have the boot screen on my laptop in particular. The first option is PopOS. This is going to be default, but then I also have an option for Windows, so I'm going to go ahead and select that and see if Windows has been destroyed or if it still works. So I see the swirly dot thing, so far so good. All right, so Windows lock screen, and let's log in. And here we are. So Windows still works. So I'm going to go ahead and restart again. I'm going to press the key combination and select the PopOS option when that shows up. All right, so I'm going to select the very first option. I didn't actually have to access the boot menu, but just to show you that it works. And here we are. I didn't record the login screen because, again, there's certain screens that my screen recorder is not able to record. But, as you can see, I was able to log into PopOS, and I was also able to reboot and access Windows from the boot device selection screen, so everything is working properly. So there you go. That was the process for installing Windows and PopOS alongside each other in a dual boot. I hope that was helpful for you guys. In the description below, I'll have a link to the System76 documentation, which is where some of these steps came from. If there's some additional information there that might be of use to you. But basically, what I just showed you is the process. We went ahead and resized the partitions to make room to create new partitions. We selected the partitions and where they go, how they map to the installation, and then I walked you through the installation of PopOS itself. So I hope that was helpful. And let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for checking out my video. I really appreciate it. If you found it useful, click that like button. And if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe so you'll see the latest content as soon as it becomes available. If you want to help me out, there's links down below for my Patreon page, as well as links for purchasing my Linux books and also my affiliate store, which has a listing of Linux-compatible hardware that I've actually tested personally. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.